This boy is Kurt Warner, a boy that loves to watch American football matches. He was very impressed with a player named Joe Montana who became an MVP that year. Since then, Kurt was very obsessed with becoming an American football player who competed in the NFL, but then, Kurt realized that it's not that easy to be an NFL player, because only 1% of players get into the NFL from the college league, and only one person can be an MVP each year, but Kurt didn't give up. He started his journey to become the best American football player on the campus level. However, his performance continued to decline until he was made a substitution in his club. Sometime later, one of his best friends, Hudnut, invited him to hang out at a nightclub. There, Kurt saw a woman dancing and it was love at first sight. Since then, he often went to the nightclub until finally, he had the opportunity to get acquainted with that woman. At first, the woman was reluctant to get acquainted with him because she was a widow with 2 children, but Kurt didn't give up and kept trying until finally, she wanted to introduce herself. She is Brenda, a widow with a son named Zach and a daughter named Jessie. A few days later, Kurt visited Brenda's house and immediately became close to Zach. Zach suffered from blindness since his eyesight couldn't work properly. This made Brenda's mother, Jenny, amazed and asked about Kurt to Brenda. Not long after that, Kurt said goodbye because Brenda was going to take Zach for therapy. When Kurt left, Brenda found out that he came all the way to her house by walking for miles and she was amazed by his effort. After that, Kurt returned to the match and remained on the bench. Kurt protested to his coach. He had been benched for 4 years and had never been played. He asked the coach to play him as a starter. The coach said that Kurt had good vision and pinpoint throw, but he often left the defense line. Then Kurt discussed it with the coach, and after the two of them chatted, finally, the coach gave Kurt a chance to play, but Kurt didn't perform as expected because he kept getting knocked down by the opposing player. Shortly after, Kurt came to visit Brenda and invited her on a date. They talked from heart to heart and Kurt also saw a tattoo on Brenda's hand. A tattoo of the motto of the Marine Corps. Brenda told her past that she was a member of the Marines. She said that she was advised by a woman to enlist in the Marines because Brenda had talent as a Marine, so after high school, Brenda signed up to become a member of the Marines. Then, Brenda married a fellow Marine named Brad, but the marriage didn't end up well because Brad had an affair with another woman. Kurt then asked about Zach's condition. Brenda then said that Zach was not a disabled kid as he knew. He was born normal, but one time, Brad called her and said that Zach had difficulty breathing, and when examined at the hospital, it turned out that Zach's brain was swollen. Brenda wondered what happened to Zach until he ended up like that. Later, Brad confessed that he accidentally hit Zach's head in the toilet and that's what caused Zach's vision to not function. Further, Brenda also said that if it's not because of Brad's clumsiness that made Zach suffer, she might forgive the affair he had. Since that chat, Brenda and Kurt got closer. They often spend time together. Their relationship became a motivation for Kurt to train and play better to the point where he was predicted to be the dark horse in the NFL. Later, during the NFL transfer season, one of the agents contacted Kurt and said that he was being promoted to compete in the NFL. On the other hand, Kurt was serious about his relationship with Brenda. Kurt introduced Brenda to his mother, but it seemed that Kurt's mother didn't really agree with his relationship because Brenda was a widow. His mother asked if he was ready to accept all the consequences. His mother then reminded Kurt that the next day was the announcement of the transfer of NFL players. Suddenly, Brenda told Kurt that the next day was also Zach's birthday and invited Kurt to attend the party. Kurt accepted the invitation without any hesitation. The next day, Kurt came to Zach's birthday with a long face because no NFL club decided to sign him. Brenda then cheered Kurt and said that it was not the end and she was sure that he would play for the NFL. Turned out, she was right. In the evening, Kurt finally received news that he was contracted by an NFL club called Green Bay Packers. He also received an initial payment of $5,000. He then immediately bought a car with that money. Unfortunately, during the training session, Kurt didn't perform as expected. He reasoned that he didn't read the training guide, which made the coach angry and fired him from the team. He tried to convince if he has talent and asked to be given one more chance, but the coach ignored him. Kurt went home confused because he had no job now. He then visited Brenda and confided that now, he didn't have a job or a house. Hearing that, Brenda then invited him to live with her at her house because she had planned to continue studying at a nursing school, so Kurt might be a big help for her to take care of the children when she left for school. To fulfill his needs, Kurt worked as a salesperson in a shop at night. Seeing Kurt's effort, Brenda became really supportive of Kurt's decision and told him not to give up, so while working and taking care of the children, Kurt also continued to practice by himself. One day, when Kurt and Brenda were having lunch, they were suddenly visited by someone named Jim Foster. He was the head coach at Iowa Barnstormers, a club that played in the AFL or Arena Football League. Jim offered Kurt to play for his team as the quarterback, but somehow, Kurt immediately refused the offer, because for Kurt, a club in AFL was nothing more than a team with discarded players. Jim was not angry after hearing that. He then left some money and his business card in the hope that Kurt would join his club. Brenda then tried to persuade him so he would accept the offer, but Kurt still refused, because, for him, the real tournament is the NFL and nothing else. However, Kurt was currently not contracted by any NFL club and their financial condition was also concerning. After that, Brenda's father, Larry, asked Kurt about his seriousness with Brenda. Kurt said that he was serious but he couldn't afford to marry her yet. Larry then told him that he and his wife were going to fly home to Arkansas because they felt better there. When winter came, because they had no money, they couldn't afford a heater. It made the children suffer from fever. Therefore, Brenda decided to stop attending school and want to work, but she was immediately stopped by Kurt, suggesting that they should temporarily stay at his mother's house, but the problem came. When they were on their way to Kurt's mother's house, their car ran out of gas. Unfortunately, it was snowing heavily outside. After collecting changes, Kurt went to the closest gas station on foot, but as soon as he wanted to pay for the gas, the money that he brought was not enough. Thankfully, the seller wanted to help and let him take the gas with him. Meanwhile, Kurt's financial condition forced him to accept Jim's offer to join Iowa Barnstormers. At the club, Kurt reunited with his best friend Hudnut. As a poor club, they made wheat fields as training grounds. Sadly, the team didn't perform well. Finally, Kurt's first match with the team started. The match was held at the rodeo arena. At that match, once again, Kurt made a fuss and made the spectators ask the coach to remove Kurt from the team. After that, Jim, who knew that Kurt had talent but lacked training, then called him and coached him personally until he was ready to play in AFL. In the next game, Kurt performed differently. He showed progress and even managed to score a touchdown, and because of that, he got a bonus of $100 from Jim. He was initially confused by the bonus, but then Jim explained that whoever on the team could score a touchdown would win a bonus for each touchdown. The bonus burned Kurt's spirit to the point where he won the match and scored 7 touchdowns. After the match, the team members celebrated their victory by partying with the girls. This apparently made Brenda jealous. In the next match, Brenda planned to surprise Kurt by watching his match without telling him, but Brenda had a hard time finding Kurt because the security guard didn't believe that Brenda was Kurt's girlfriend. Then, Brenda was shocked because Zach suddenly disappeared. Brenda yelled calling for Zach and her voice was finally heard by Kurt. Unfortunately, after they met, the only thing they did was argue. Brenda said that she had a hard time finding Kurt, but Kurt said that it was all because Brenda didn't tell him. Brenda's anger escalated when Hudnut told Kurt that there would be a party with the girls to celebrate their victory. Sometime later, Brenda met Kurt at the training ground. Brenda asked him about the seriousness of their relationship. Brenda said that they were not meant for each other. Brenda, who had experienced a failure in her marriage, decided to break up with Kurt. After that, Kurt returned to the competition and won again, but this time, he looked gloomy and unhappy, different from the usual. His mother, who watched the match, saw that her son could not enjoy the victory that he and his team got. After the match, Kurt's mother advised her son about life. She knew the turmoil he was experiencing because he broke up with Brenda. His mother said that if she supported the relationship between Kurt and Brenda, it was all because since they were together, he had become better and happier. After that, Brenda suddenly called and told him that both of her parents had died due to the storm that hit Arkansas. Hearing this, Kurt immediately rushed over to meet Brenda in Arkansas. After the cremation, Kurt returned home, while Brenda still had to clean up the mess in her parents' house. When Brenda returned from Arkansas, it turned out that Kurt had prepared a surprise for her. Kurt proposed to Brenda. Thankfully, Brenda accepted his proposal, and sometime later, they got married. The children also started calling Kurt their father. The weekend has arrived. The final match between Iowa Barnstormers and defending champion Tampa Bay Storm had arrived. The match was exciting yet intense, but sadly, Kurt and the team didn't win the match. After the match, David Gillis, a representative from St. Louis Rams, one of the clubs that played in the NFL, met Kurt and offered him to join the team. He was very happy because he finally had the hope to play in the NFL. Nevertheless, Rams coaches experienced a difference in opinion. The head coach named Dick Vermeil really liked the way Kurt played, while the technical director named Mike said that Kurt was very slow, plus he was over his prime age, and even his performance was below standard and had no selling points, so it was impossible for him to be included as a member of the team. Even though there was a difference in opinion, Dick believed in his decision. He could see that Kurt is a skillful player. Mike, on the other hand, never really believed in Kurt in the practice sessions, but, despite all that, Kurt still tried to stay strong while showing his abilities. Long story short, Dick gave Kurt advice and also encouraged him because he believed in Kurt's abilities and talents. Therefore, Dick gave him the opportunity to show his abilities even if he was only a substitution. Hearing this, Kurt's enthusiasm rose again and he promised to prove it. By joining the NFL club, Kurt's economy was improving. He could buy a bigger house and provide for his new family. In 1998, Rams' ace quarterback was badly injured and couldn't play. The coach was upset. Moreover, he was the best player on the team. Now, the only backup quarterback was Kurt. The coaches were arguing about whether to play Kurt or not. Likewise, the sports analysts were discussing who would be playing in the quarterback position. Then, Kurt was called to the coach's room. The coach asked if he was ready to be played in the next game. It was done because the coach wanted to see how good Kurt's mental was by asking some very intimidating questions, but Kurt didn't falter and firmly answered the coach's questions that cornered him. Not only that, but he also asked to be given the opportunity to prove it. After that, the coach held a press conference and stated that they were ready to play Kurt. The news became a hot topic since Kurt's name was never been brought to the media, let alone be played. Amid the pressures, Kurt tried to stay calm ahead of the match. Before the match started, Brenda met Kurt and read him a letter written by Zach that ignited Kurt's enthusiasm to play his best. The match finally started, but Kurt hadn't shown his best performance and still often made mistakes. In the middle of the match, the coach called him and said that all this time, his hard work was to make him a champion and he was sure that Kurt was ready for it. After that, the match continued and Rams managed to keep pace with the opposing team's game. Kurt showed a quality that no one had ever seen. Kurt Warner played calmly and excitedly. Apart from that, the coach gave him full control over the team, so he managed to bring the Rams to become the league champion that year. After the match, Kurt thanked everyone that believed in him, especially Brenda that tirelessly supported him so that he could pursue his dream. Kurt, who was once an unknown player, was now the best player in the league. The achievements obtained by Kurt led him to become an MVP that year, as well as being the best player in NFL. His career didn't stop there. He kept playing until 2009 and achieved many awards.